I'm going to read my journal entry from today, January 28th, 2025. I know what my task is, and I've known for a few days now. I know that every challenge I've faced, every obstacle I've overcome, every time I've fallen and risen and kept moving forward has led me to here. I know now and clearly see that my life is divinely orchestrated. I know that I am here to serve a purpose specific to me and my uniqueness. I know that pain is beautiful. I know these things and maybe a few more things, but there is so much I don't know. I know that what I've written so far is my brain's way of protecting me. And I was just thrown a bit by a patron who made eye contact with me when he walked in and just heavily sighed as he passed me. It was like an annoyed tone. I know it has nothing to do with me. Oh God, are we at that level with my external reality mirroring my thoughts? Because there's definitely a part of me that is annoyed by my seeming inability to share this truth. I say seeming because one of the things I do know is I am capable of anything. I can and will do hard things because I deserve it. The truth will set you free, Leah. This is another thing I know. A guy here at the coffee shop just handed his friend a gift in a bag that says Happy Holidays, and he chuckled and said, I know, sorry it's late. And I'm going to use that as my transition. Speaking of the holidays, the particular truth I'm being called to share, more accurately, my body is revolting against me, or even more accurately, it's attempting to save me. Bodies are so much more intelligent than we give them credit for. And it's like, get this truth out or it will kill you eventually. Anyway, this particular truth was brought to my consciousness around Thanksgiving last year and has blossomed into this beautifully painful truth. Potty break, one moment. Well, fuck. I've been asked to expand on what I wrote I've been asked to expand on what I wrote above about the truth. When not expressed, would eventually kill me. The other morning, when I was at the coffee shop and I overheard a woman talking about how she couldn't trust her son, and I distilled the message to be, trust yourself. Well, this woman also mentioned a movie she recently watched, A Star is Born. I hadn't seen it, so that night I watched it for the first time. It is a beautifully raw depiction of two sides of the same coin. A vulnerable display of the power of pain. When faced, it can catapult. When avoided, what does that say? A vulnerable display of the power of pain. When faced, it can catapult you. When avoided, it will kill you. We are always given the choice to be the hero of our life or a victim of our circumstances. Fuck. This leads me to a Boy Meets World episode I watched last night. This time I didn't overhear anyone talking about Boy Meets World. It just came to me, so I watched it. And this episode started out with the question, if you could have any superhero as your dad, who would you choose? And the kids talked about who they'd choose and why. One of the overall messages for this episode was to be a kid as long as you can. Don't grow up too quick. And it ended with a conversation between the brothers, Corey and Eric. Corey returned from a water gun fight, and his older brother was laying on the bed exhausted from a shift at the grocery store their dad manages. Corey wrings out his wet t-shirt on Eric's face, and Eric says he would do something about it if he weren't so exhausted, and goes on to say he doesn't know how their dad does it. How does he go to work all day, come home and work more? And on that particular day, he was finishing a fence painting job Corey botched. Eric then said, it's like he's not human. And Corey said at the same time, it's like he's superhuman. My dad is Superman. Which is who he chose at the beginning of the episode. And I thought, fuck, this is exactly what is wrong with us. Or me. I can only speak for me. But I, like Corey, had my dad on a pedestal for far too long. To me, he was Superman. He was superhuman. He was my superhero. You should never meet your heroes. I know why people say that now, because people aren't meant to be on pedestals. Pedestals leave no room for error, they leave no room for being human, and they make it impossible for connection. They leave no room for questions or disagreement, they leave no room for vulnerability, and they leave no room for connection. Oh, and they leave no room for truth. A pedestal is for a person what a period is grammatically. End of story. Which brings me back to November, when I shared part of my story, a truth I had kept hidden for 11 years. I was raped when I was 23 years old. I shared this truth because, like all truths, it let me know when it was time to. My body let me know. A part of me was set free that day. I hadn't shared this with anyone, even myself, before sharing with the world. I had so many thoughts before posting. What would people think? What would my family think? But I knew that wasn't important. Only what I thought about it mattered. Only what I felt about it mattered. And I let go. Fast forward to the day before Thanksgiving. I was driving to my parents' house, despite knowing in my bones it was no longer a safe place for me, in my nervous system. I was listening to The Empath's Survival Guide as almost a pep talk to myself. I had to tell myself I don't need to fall into my same patterns, that I am safe now and strong and I will be okay. With the awareness that I was about to go against what my intuition and body were telling me, I pulled into the driveway to see a political sign in the yard. It said loud and clear, "This is not a safe place for you." I called my mom and told her Chubbs and I would be driving back home because I didn't feel safe. She began to defend their political beliefs, and I told her that overtly supporting women's rights to their bodily autonomy being taken away made me feel unsafe, and it also perfectly answered her question of why I felt unsafe sharing my truth with my parents 11 years ago. I spent Thanksgiving alone, and the Friday after I received a call from my dad. He doesn't have Instagram and didn't know what I had shared until my mom showed him right before he called. The call started out not with a, "Hello, how are you? Are you okay? I'm so sorry this happened to you," but with a, "I hear you were raped when you were 23. Is that true?" He continued to ask questions, and I prepared myself for the rest of the call by taking the observer's seat. Throughout the call, my dad, my superhero, called me crazy for sharing my truth on social media. He told me I was disrespectful for not telling him or my mom first. When I told him I would continue to share my truth because it's what I have to do for my own well-being, for which I am solely responsible for, and not responsible for how he or my mom feel about me sharing, he called me selfish. And the thing I thought about myself for 11 years, for the choice I made as an attempt to regain any sense of control, came from the mouth of my superhero. He called me sick. And as if one time weren't enough, he continued to call me sick, selfish, and crazy. I asked him to consider the phone call as a prime example for why I've never felt safe sharing my truth. I asked him to use the conversation as a starting point to do some self-reflection. It has taken me months to process that phone call and to feel what came up during that phone call. And it has taken me years to accept and become consciously aware of the truth that my dad is my first abuser. But my superhero was on the phone that day. It was me. It was always me.